You wake up to the sound of distant explosions. The bunker trembles slightly, dust falling from the concrete ceiling above you, drifting down like pale gray snow. For a moment, you forget where you are. Then the smell brings it all back. Damp concrete, cigarette smoke, sweat, fear. You are deep beneath the shattered heart of Berlin, inside the Führer bunker, a maze of reinforced corridors and dimly lit rooms buried meters below the Reich Chancellery. And it is April 28, 1945. Berlin is dying above you. The Red Army has encircled the city from every direction. Soviet artillery pounds the streets day and night without pause. Entire neighborhoods that once held schools, restaurants, and families are now smoldering rubble. The Battle of Berlin, one of the most brutal urban sieges in all of human history, is in its final savage days. And you are trapped underground with the most hunted man in the world, Adolf Hitler. The bunker is darker than anything you imagined. Fluorescent lights flicker constantly, buzzing and cutting out without warning. The electric power grid for the city above is almost completely destroyed, and the backup systems down here are struggling to keep up. The air ventilation barely functions anymore. Every breath feels thick and stale. There are roughly 30 people left in these corridors: secretaries, personal guards, doctors, a handful of remaining military officers. Nobody speaks above a whisper. Nobody laughs. You walk the hallways, and every single face carries the same unspoken knowledge. The war is lost. Germany is finished. And everyone down here knows it, except, somehow, the man at the center of it all. Hitler refuses to accept reality. You first see him during a military briefing on the evening of the 28th. He enters the room slowly, hunched forward, shuffling with the posture of a man 20 years older than his 56 years. His left hand trembles uncontrollably at his side, a symptom that has worsened dramatically over recent months. This is not the commanding figure from the propaganda reels. There is no fire in his eyes, no energy in his step. His uniform hangs loose on a frame that has grown thin and hollow. When he lowers himself into his chair, the entire room falls completely silent. Maps cover the table. Officers take turns delivering updates. One general explains that Soviet forces have already crossed the Spree River. Another reports that German defensive lines in multiple city districts have fully collapsed. A third pauses, choosing his words carefully, before admitting that there are no meaningful reserves left to deploy. Hitler stares at the maps in silence for a long moment, and then, without warning, he erupts. He slams his fist down and screams that his generals are cowards and traitors, that the German army has failed him, failed Germany, failed history, that Berlin will hold, that relief forces are still coming, that the tide will turn. His voice fills the small room, and officers stand rigid, eyes forward, expressionless, because every single person at that table knows the truth. Berlin will fall within days, possibly within hours. Outside the reinforced walls, the explosions are getting closer. The bunker shakes with irregularity now, a steady, rhythmic trembling that you feel in your chest more than hear with your ears. Rumors move through the corridors like a current. The Soviets have reached the Reichstag. Entire German divisions have thrown down their weapons and surrendered en masse. Above ground, Berlin's surviving civilians are desperately trying to flee through roads that are already cut off or burning. But for everyone inside this bunker, there is no escape route left. The Soviets are sealing the city block by block, street by street. The ring is tightening. Then, late on the 28th, news arrives that changes the atmosphere of the bunker entirely. A radio intercept confirms that Heinrich Himmler, commander of the SS, one of the most powerful men in the entire Nazi regime, and someone Hitler considered among his most fanatically loyal followers, has been secretly attempting to negotiate a separate peace deal with the Western Allies. He did it without Hitler's knowledge, without his permission, behind his back, while Berlin was still burning. When Hitler receives this information, the reaction is volcanic. He paces, he shouts, he declares Himmler a traitor of the worst kind. In the paranoid, suffocating atmosphere of the bunker, this revelation sends ripples of fear through every remaining officer and staff member. If Himmler could betray him, anyone could. Whispered conversations happen in corners, eyes move with suspicion. Nobody knows who will be accused next. And yet, in the middle of all this, and something completely unexpected happens. On April 29th, Adolf Hitler decides to get married. In a concrete room beneath a city being obliterated by Soviet artillery, with the Third Reich collapsing in real time above his head, Hitler marries Eva Braun in a brief civil ceremony. The room is small. The witnesses are a handful of bunker staff. The paperwork is signed. There is no grandeur, no ceremony, no music. Afterwards, someone opens a bottle of champagne. There are awkward smiles, stilted congratulations, a few people raising glasses with hollow eyes. The atmosphere is surreal in a way that is almost impossible to fully describe, because everyone in that room understands with absolute clarity what this wedding actually is. It is not the beginning of a life together. It is a farewell, a final formality before the end. Later that same night, Hitler dictates his personal and political testaments to his secretaries, who type every word carefully. In the political testament, he blames Germany's defeat on international Jewish conspiracies, on traitors within the military, on the failures of others. He takes no responsibility, not for the war, not for the millions dead, not for the continent he helped reduce to ruins. Even now, with the Soviet army a few city blocks away, the self-delusion holds completely. He names Grand Admiral Karl Dönitz as his successor and head of state. The documents are signed and multiple copies are prepared. Couriers are given the near-suicidal task of escaping the encircled city to deliver them. Most of those men will not survive the attempt. By the morning of April 30th, 1945, there is nothing left. Soviet troops are confirmed to be fighting in buildings just blocks from the Reich Chancellery. You can now hear not just artillery, but the distinct rapid crack of machine gun fire echoing through the streets directly above the bunker roof. The tension inside these walls has become something almost physical, a pressure in the air that everyone feels but no one speaks. Hitler gathers his closest remaining staff in the early afternoon. He moves slowly down the line, shaking hands, looking each person briefly in the eye, thanking them for their loyalty and their service. Some of the staff cry openly, others stand at rigid attention, faces tight, unsure what expression they are even supposed to wear in a moment like this. Then Hitler, with Eva Braun beside him, turns and walks to his private quarters. The door closes behind them. The hallway goes completely silent. People stand without moving. Seconds stretch, a minute passes, then another. Nobody speaks. The distant artillery continues its rhythm overhead, but inside the bunker corridor, the silence is absolute. And then, cutting through everything, a single sharp gunshot echoes through the walls. Nobody moves for a moment. Then a guard steps forward and slowly opens the door. Hitler is slumped on the sofa, a gunshot wound to his head. Eva Braun lies beside him. She has taken cyanide. The man who once commanded the most powerful military machine in Europe, who had held an entire continent under occupation, who had set in motion a genocide of unimaginable scale, is dead in a concrete room, alone with his new wife, as his enemies close in from every direction. Following his explicit final instructions, staff members carry both bodies out through the emergency exit and into the garden of the Reich Chancellery above. The sky over Berlin is choked with smoke. Soviet shells continue to fall nearby, close enough that the ground shakes with each impact. The bodies are placed in a shallow crater in the ground. Petrol is poured over them. Someone strikes a match. The flames rise up against the gray, the smoke-filled Berlin sky as artillery thunders in the distance. It is not a state funeral, it is not a ceremony, it is a rushed, frightened burning in a bombed-out garden while the world falls apart around it. Back inside the bunker, the collapse is immediate and total. Without Hitler, the chain of command dissolves within hours. Groups of officers argue over whether to attempt a breakout through Soviet lines. Others begin quietly preparing to surrender. Some are already writing notes, destroying documents, burning papers. The Reich that had promised to last 1,000 years is now counting its final hours in a damp, underground corridor. Within days, Germany will sign an unconditional surrender. The war in Europe will be over, and the bunker staff who survived, those who made it out through the chaos of those final days, one would carry the memory of those last 48 hours for the rest of their lives. History tends to remember the large-scale movements, the army groups, the invasions, the liberation marches, but some of the most devastating and revealing moments of the Second World War happened underground, in flickering fluorescent light, in the quiet spaces between explosions, in the faces of people who already knew the outcome, but couldn't say it out loud. The Führer bunker in April 1945 was not a place of power. It was a place of collapse, psychological, moral, and finally, physical. And for everyone trapped inside it during those final days, the end of the war did not arrive with cheering crowds or waving flags. It arrived with a single gunshot, a locked door, and the distant, relentless sound of artillery drawing closer.